looked her straight in the eye and I said, Daphne, I killed my baby.
He said, you have two choices. You either get out or you get an abortion.
I thought that a baby would mess up my life and he would marry me with a child.
We went into the schools with sex education programs that we knew would increase the sexual activity and therefore the pregnancy rate.
I lived in a crappy apartment and I drove a crappy car and I didn't even have a job. Who was I to raise a child?
As the nurse was performing the ultrasound, I watched her and she was looking at my baby on the monitor. And I asked her, I said, can I see my baby? And she took the monitor literally with her hands and turned it away from me.
And I turned to look at the screen and thought, that looks like a baby. Well, she got very upset and yelled at me and said, turn around, don't you dare look at that.
I did not believe that it was a baby inside of me at the time.
I was told it was a blob of tissue.
They explained it to me that it was a blob, that it wasn't anything yet.
But I needed to have this abortion as soon as possible before this blob of tissue turns into a baby.
And she told me that it wasn't even a baby yet, that it was just a clump of cells.
This is the pregnancy experts saying, there it is, you're pregnant. And then grab her by the bony part of the elbow and squeeze. Do you have your money? Can you do it today?
You write your check for $300 and all your problems are solved. Wish somebody told me what really happens.
I bought the lie. I now know she didn't show me my baby. She just showed me a dot on the screen so that I would go through with the abortion.
When he finished abortion number 1, he ran across the hall. He didn't stop to do a surgical scrub. He did not stop to do operative notes. He went across the hall, changed his gloves, and started abortion number 2.
And a very motherly type woman put her arm around me and walked me down the hallway towards the room.
I knew what I was doing was not all right, and I knew it wasn't going to be over soon. I knew I had to live with this decision once again for the rest of my life.
He began to work on me and I remember feeling horrifying cramps and it was worse than they had ever told me.
They turned on the vacuum machine and it was a loud, horrible noise.
The sound of that vacuum machine, I'll never forget that noise.
The awful sound of the vacuum extracting the baby.
The sound of this machine was like this ghoulish generator, and then the pain hit me.
I literally felt like my soul was being sucked out that day.
It was excruciatingly painful, and I almost passed out.
And immediately, the tears just started rolling down my eyes.
And I remember laying there crying and wishing that I could stop it, but it was too late.
They sucked the life out of my body that I knew I'd never be able to get back.
And I knew right then and there I had made the biggest mistake of my life.
I heard the sound of the vacuum, and all of a sudden I saw a splattering of the blood, and I knew my baby had to be in that jar.
And that memory burned in my mind because I realized that was the only remains of the child that I had had inside of me.
And I heard one nurse say to the other nurse, it's twins. And then she took the trash bag and she tied it in a knot and she walked out with the twins in that trash bag.
I was hysterical. I was crying, and for the first time, maybe because I was heavily medicated, I felt free to call out and say, you know, it was my baby, it was my baby.
I knew deep inside of me that what I had done was take the life of my own child.
It opened my eyes to what abortion really was, and I knew that when I walked out of that abortion facility that day that I would never have anything to do with abortion ever again.
All the feminists said is my body, my right. This was going to help me. Why didn't I feel that way?
They said my life would get back to normal again. It's never been back to normal again.
The grief and trauma and shame that we as women deal with this choice, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
I had nightmares. I became depressed.
I wanted to meet them. I wanted to see what they would have looked like, their voices.
It affected me as a woman, as a mother, as a wife.
It finally just get to a point where I no longer wanted to live. I felt I could no longer go on.
In the middle of the night, she woke up and she was just crying. And I looked in her face and I just saw terror.
I began to have suicidal thoughts, and I made a suicide attempt.
I turned the gas on in the oven, and thank God a friend came to the door. I tried 2 other times to kill myself as well.
There's not enough tissue in my office to handle the tears of the women when they realize that they may have killed the only baby that they will have.
The doctor told me that because of all of that scarring in my uterus from the abortions, that I had been left infertile and that most likely I would not become pregnant again.
I was 16 when I had my abortion. I'm 48 now, and I'm still coming to terms with the fact that I'm never going to have children the normal way.
I lay on the table and started thinking, how am I going to tell my husband that I'm not going to be able to have children with him? It was the reality of knowing that the only 3 children I would ever bear, I killed.
I thought many times, well, I won't be able to be at my little girl's first birthday party. I won't be having those father-daughter talks. I won't be able to take her to school the first day or walk down the football field at homecoming. I'm going to miss those occasions.
I would just encourage any woman that found themselves in the same situation that they would really think twice about it and that they wouldn't let fear lead them to make a decision that they would regret the rest of their life.
You don't want to live a life of regrets, wondering what your child looked like, wishing you could hear their laughter, because one day you will experience that if you choose to give your child life.
There's life and joy for everyone in America, and that should be from fertilization to natural death. And so I invite you today and always, it's very important to just choose life.
Many women have had abortions, and there's no place for them to go, to have the voice, to say it. I think there's a lot of women in hiding because of still the shame of admitting it and its impact in their life. So what I would want to say is take courage and do so for yourself and for the memory of that child.